All right, welcome back to episode 2 of Booked, the podcast that helps you get booked on podcast. I am one of the hosts, Spencer Carpenter, and my co-host,
Amanda Foley.
And on this episode, we are going to cover why podcast, when should you start going on podcasts, and the types of things you need to start getting yourself, pitching and booked on podcasts. So, I guess, Amanda, I want to get your perspective. Why podcasts?
Oh, so many reasons. And we talked a little bit about this in episode 1, but pretty much anybody I've ever purchased anything from in terms of like a service, a course, a session, it's been because I've heard them on a podcast. And what I find, from the perspective of there's so many ways that people consume podcasts. Like it could be straight education, it could be entertainment, there's fiction podcasts, there's all kinds of things. But for the people that we work with, I find that there's just nothing out there that you can say in your marketing, that you can pay for in advertising, that's going to let people actually get to know you in the way that a podcast does. So if you want people to understand you, understand what you do, learn more about you, and actually get a feel for you and whether they want to buy from you, I don't think there is any stronger medium out there than podcasts.
Yeah, well, I think it's worth mentioning just because we don't necessarily know who is always going to find this podcast or where they're at in understanding what podcasts are. When I talk to my high school guidance counselor once a year at Career Day, her reference of podcasts is I love cereal.
Right.
And that is
you
not...
still talk to your career guidance counselor?
Yeah, I go every year. She's my biggest champion.
That's so cool.
And she wasn't even my guidance counselor. She was just the person I went to the day my guidance counselor was sick and I needed something. But there's so many ecosystems. And so a lot of the most popular are entertainment based. So things like Serial or a comedy podcast or sports podcast. And then the next thing they know that might be education or get into something about more than that would be like Rogan, where he has on different thought leaders from a variety of areas. A lot of the people we are working with are thought leaders in entrepreneurship, in health, in investing. And so it's not like running an ad on TV for Clorox. You don't need a podcast to sell a $479
Nobody wants to
Clorox.
listen to 40 minutes on Clorox.
No, but to your point about whether it's selling a book or a mastermind or a course or consulting, that's something where people want to take more time to understand who they're buying from.
Right.
And the podcast is a long form opportunity to show personality, to show background, and to show just perspective.
It's very personal. It's, as you said, personality. Like that was the word that kept coming into it's personal.
Yeah. And so that's what's so unique about this medium. Many people are probably saying to themselves, how is this different from radio or TV or billboards or Google ads? Like how is this something that can benefit me? It is that ability to really show who you are in a not condensed timeline. It's with a more flexibility for diving in on a particular subject or going on a tangent that might be the difference maker.
And I'll throw in my PR perspective too. And this is a word that if you ever, work in the PR world, it's earned versus paid. Now, not that people don't pay to go on certain podcasts, but we don't typically play in that space. And there's, with product brands, there can be rationale for that because they can sell a lot of product. But PR in general is earned, and it's not something that you buy. And it's also, like I always like to say, it's what other people say about you versus what you say about yourself. And even though you're talking about yourself on a podcast, that host is inviting you on. And that if they've invited you on, they care about that audience because they've spent time to build it, to nurture it, to offer it value because they want to keep those listeners coming back week after week. and they're only going to have people on that they have personally
Right.
vetted and support and trust. And so I think just by default, you're getting that halo of goodwill from the host, which is going to make the listeners more open
Right.
to what you have to say, where anything you put on social media or your website or, that's what you're saying about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying it to your own echo chamber, which is the people that already follow you. Maybe they've
Right.
purchased, maybe they haven't. But what these podcasts can do is draw more people into that ecosystem where you then can nurture them and you grow that warm audience. And then ultimately it expands your, the people that you're actually speaking to on a regular basis with the information that is coming from you.
Right. Right. Well, that you hit on a few good things there. And, one of the most basic benefits I like to point out to people is like someone is edifying you, inviting you onto their platform. They're paying for the production of
Right.
it. They're paying for the podcast to be produced, any advertising dollars that go behind the podcast.
Yeah. The promotion, the development of assets, social media assets, all of those things.
So it's like all for free for you for it's a trade-off for you providing valuable content to their audience. And then there's the SEO benefits, which we'll dive into all these things in future episodes. But like I always like to point out, if you're new in business and someone Googles you, what they're going to find is your website where you said great things about you, your LinkedIn where you said great things about you, and maybe your Instagram that says great things about you. And
all from you.
Yeah, that's great. But what people really like to see,
you need to have that, right? So like, I would never knock that.
You need to be able to have your mission out there.
You're developing that content yourself.
Yeah, but if you say, let's just say this isn't something that you turn to a greater part of your marketing strategy, but let's just say you do put in the effort to go on 10 podcasts or something like that. That diversifies your SEO so much. And it's not just your website, your LinkedIn, and your Instagram, but all these hosts put your name and your content on their website, on their YouTube, their Apple Podcasts, their Spotify. It really diversifies things with unique
and their
titles.
social media too, because I've even said that come up, like Instagram posts will come up sometimes and they're not from the person.
And it's so that's just like one of the benefits there that some people don't always think about. And then, as you point out, the relationship with the host can be sometimes the most important part. It's not always about being, in fact, most of the time, it's not about being in front of the biggest audience. It's being in front of the right audience and a host that has either curated that audience or has a network of the right audience. It can be a referral source of that type of thing. And so this comes back to what I was originally saying is like most of the podcasts we work with or a lot of the ecosystem we work with are not, they're not podcasts with 20,000 plus downloads per episode. A lot of times,
some of them are, but not the vast majority. They're like the exception,
right?
Because there's not as many of them out there,
right? And there are far more that we work with that have several hundred or maybe a few thousand, but they're of the right person,
exactly.
And so that's why podcasts are important here. And one last point I'll make is, so many entrepreneurs and thought leaders think to themselves, I want to speak. I want to be a speaker. If they get the invitation to speak to even 100 people, they jump at it.
I know. I just saw a post on this.
But then they're like, but I want to go on a podcast with several thousand. I'm like, what's the difference here? You got to stay home. You didn't have to put together a presentation. It's easier. Why do you equate it differently? But again, come back to the right audience. Let's just say it's not 100. Let's say it's 25, but they're the right person. Well, if you've got a 5% close rate, you got 1.5 customers out of that. So it was worth your time.
Yeah.
So that's, I think we both were able to get out there what our perspective on why podcasts. But I guess the next thing is like, when should someone consider going on podcast?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's ever a bad time to start going on podcasts. What I would say is that before someone were to invest both their time and potentially money in initiating a podcast campaign, you need to make sure that you have the foundations in place. And so that would mean a clear direction in terms of what you're offering, what you want to speak about. I mean, especially in the world, the personal development world, people shift and they morph all the time. And that's okay, as long as like where you're sending them, your core business model, it's not like just the offers can change, but your core of what you're offering should be right.
Mm-hmm.
You should have the social platforms of your preference set up and ready to welcome followers, a lead magnet, or like at least an email list
Mm-hmm.
to get, to get people in, because I think sometimes people make the mistake of thinking, oh, I'm just going to go on podcasts and people are going to buy from me.
Right.
It can happen, but it's not like a discrete sales tool, and
Right.
that's not really the objective. The
Right.
objective is to bring people into your world. And so if you don't have the place to capture them, to actually then continue to talk to them over time, because we know it takes people a long time to buy.
Right.
Not everybody does it. Some people are like more instant. Some people want to follow you for a year before they do anything, or the time is right. And I think if you don't have I've actually, clients that I really wanted to work with, I've turned away in essence. I mean, I've turned away, but I've said like, I don't recommend
It's
work
not the
with
right
me
time
right now until you have these things in place, because you're going to lose people.
Mm-hmm.
Like people might hear you and be like, oh, that's so cool. I might need that. I don't need it today.
Right.
And if you didn't bring them in a year from now when they need your service, they're not going to even remember your name,
Right.
most likely.
Right.
So I would say that's probably like the most important thing, but you don't have to have the biggest business to
No.
go on podcasts. It's
No.
a great place to grow your business and become more visible. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't think and then we know there's like millions and millions of podcasts out there.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a bad time as long as you have the right foundations in place to capitalize on the output of that podcast.
Yeah. And there are definitely ways to be more efficient with that. I will say I only recently started getting my act together with an email list and a lead magnet and stuff like that. And I'm 5 years into business. I went on probably 3 dozen podcasts with nothing more than the intention of just telling people what I do and trying to give advice on how to do it. And then saying like, follow me on LinkedIn. And
Right.
if you're interested, my Calendly link is in the description. And I was okay with that. I like, it gave me an opportunity to speak about this more, become more versed and get kind of those reps in, which was helpful for sales. It was helpful for my marketing, helpful in just me flushing out ideas.
Yeah,
with
it is
hosts.
helpful from that perspective. Yeah.
That's one thing I recommend is if you actually do have a talk coming up, go on 5 podcasts before it and practice it.
It also is like market research in some ways too.
Yeah.
I think you see what hosts like the guests can see what hosts are asking, which
Yeah.
I think tells them what their potential audience wants.
Yeah, and they could be like, that idea doesn't make sense to me whatsoever.
Right. Or like I was pushing this offering where really I'm seeing that this might be more valuable to people than I
Right.
initially thought.
Right. So that's, but to your point, the way to be most efficient is not always you have the book coming out or you're raising capital or it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. But to your point, if you can at least have an email list set up or some sort of call to action, however large or small, I have a free ebook or here's my form, or some people even do like, here's my custom ChatGPT prompts, things like that.
Yep.
It is really helpful in one, getting yourself booked, but 2, showing that there's something actionable that the audience can do after the interview ends to continue your relationship
Right.
with
And it
them.
can be as simple, just so people also don't think they have to have those things. Those things are wonderful because I'm like the first person that'll be like, ooh, like give me whatever it is. But I also think that even just having a clear social platform that shows what you do, has
Right.
examples of your work, with even testimonials, I think is also even enough, just so people don't think
Right.
that they have to have those
Right.
things. Not that I disagree with what you're saying, but I think sometimes people almost hold themselves back.
Yeah.
Because they're like, but this all
For
has
sure.
to be perfect first,
Well,
right? And it
a lot
doesn't.
of people are too close to not only their industry, but even themselves to understand that they have a perspective that that is unique. Some people don't think
They
they
don't
do.
realize that they do. Yeah.
If you
Well, and
get,
that's our job too, because we can make everybody even
well,
more interesting than they might appear.
But if
initially.
if you get paid to do anything, you are a professional.
Yeah.
I worked at a Wings to Go when I was 15. I was a professional cook.
There you go.
I got paid to do it. I learned things about working in a wing restaurant that most people did not know. And so everybody has a perspective. Even if you have none of the efficiencies in place that we talked about, such as a book or a lead magnet, or like, you at least need to know what perspective you have.
Yes, and who you're talking to,
Who
right?
you're talking to, what value you can bring, or the problem you're solving.
Exactly.
And this is actually something that I did create for people, was what I call my KAOR system. Keywords, audience, outcomes, and reputable figures. And so the keywords are what are like 5 keywords people would be searching for that relate to what you do and your industry? What are the outcomes they're looking for? So, for example, I work with a lot of real estate people. A lot of people are looking for financial freedom or passive investing opportunities. And so that's like an outcome that people would be, putting in there. The audience would be high net worth individuals that have the money to invest in real estate. And then, the reputable figures is looking for who are people that you emulate, that you want to maybe, they've been on 50 podcasts. Let me go look and see what shows they've been on to then try and
it almost helps you
that.
Send you down the rabbit hole, right? Of like following the breadcrumbs to the next show. Yeah, and I think the other thing people don't think about too, and this is not necessarily 100% tied to this topic, but I'll just say that it's like, why now? Like, so you don't have to have the book. You don't have to have the hard news trigger. But as long as you can identify what you want to talk about and why it's important now to the listeners, that is also what's going to help you. Even like if you do that for yourself and clarify it, it's going to help you figure out like, am I ready?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a really good point because, again, I work with a lot of people investing. So with inflation being a topic, it's like, okay.
Right. I can't earn money fast enough to keep up. How am I going to?
You don't want to hold cash all the time. So you need to put them in assets. So why real estate right now? Why stocks right now? Whatever it might be. That's a really good point. And I hadn't really thought about that one.
We forget sometimes. It's always like, I'm always like, what's the secret sauce for each client, right? But that's been coming up for me a lot more lately too, is like, and I work with someone that is a former stock energy trader, but she does mindset work. She's a spiritual investor. I think I maybe mentioned her in the first episode.
What's her name?
Elizabeth Ralph.
There we go.
Give her the plug. She's amazing. And I actually just booked her on one of the biggest. Have you ever heard of Almost 30?
Yeah.
I booked her on Almost 30.
Oh, that's awesome.
New York in a couple
Congratulations.
of weeks to do that. Yeah, that's a big one. So anyway, but again, like she fits their profile, even though she comes from like a very straight money background. She works in spirituality and mindset. And it's such a hot topic right now. Like I have been getting her on bigger and bigger shows, again, because everybody's worried about money. And her whole premise is money neutrality. And you shouldn't necessarily have to trade time for dollars if you can actually find ways to amplify your earning potential. But a lot of it is about your mindset and your subconscious and what you believe you can hold.
That's so interesting you talk about that, because I actually had a client that, long story short, he was indicted on fraud.
Oh, geez.
He now works with the
I have
government.
a couple stories. We'll do this one offline too, because I have a good one for you too.
He turned himself in. He did his time. He now works with the FBI to identify Ponzi schemes and stuff like that.
Wow, that's interesting.
Part of his story is like when he was operating a Ponzi scheme, it was because he had losses. And part of his story is like, I hired hypnosis people. I hired people to teach me how to be better at investing so I could get people's money back. Yeah. And I'm only saying that these are things we learn along the way. It's like, who would have known that was a thing? She goes on a lot of
shows with like very spiritual people that have like, they're like psychic or whatever. And they're
like,
well,
he tried all of it.
Right.
He tried all of it.
And they'll say like, she just won another show she had been on last year. They just were talking about how, giving a little insight into the world behind the world here, but like how it was one of her favorite episodes. And she was like, why did I never think to sort of like feel intuitively into the market? Because she teaches a lot about values-based investing, right? You don't have to be psychic, but invest in things you care about. Like if you care about green energy or whatever it might be.
The things you're passionate about.
Exactly, because you're putting energy into something that's meaningful for you. And it actually then creates a return because you believe in it. And so, I mean, we're getting a little woo-woo here too with me, but
it feels like a tangent, but it's not. This is the secret sauce we're talking about. This is what makes someone's experience and their perspective unique,
valuable and unique.
From all the, I mean, think about no matter how big or small a podcast is, most of them release weekly. That means that there are 52 episodes a year and you're trying to get one of them.
Right.
How are you going to do that?
If you're lucky, if there's 52 episodes a year, right?
And if you don't have an explosive social media, you need to bring them in whatever way
You
you
do,
can.
because I mean, I know as someone that vets podcast inquiries, like if there's no links, forget it. Some people are like, never put links. And I'm like, you have to put links, because if you're making me do work, if I don't know your name or if you're not doing something super interesting, like I'm probably just going to decline.
Right.
But I think that, yeah, like you gotta show why it's different. Like if I get one more, and not that these people aren't doing great work, but like I'm a coach who works in subconscious beliefs to help you align with yourself. Like great, like because we need everyone to have that experience and become better humans. But if you're not doing it in a different way, and you're pitching my client's podcast, who she pretty much has the same underlying things going on, that she offers in her
Right.
work to our community, there's no reason for me
Right.
to have you on there.
Why platform if
Right.
it's just the same thing?
Why are you
You
different?
need something different.
Why are you different?
So yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up for this episode. And we dove into why podcast, why now, who should be going on podcasts and when, and what types of things that they should kind of have in place before they decided to start doing pitching. I mentioned my KAOR system. I do have that as a form that you can find in the description, and helps you, it's just a direction to fill out those things. And then once you have them, you can kind of use those to help craft topics, but we'll dive into that in another episode as well.
Sounds good.
So we didn't actually say this in our last episode, in episode 1, but where can people find you?
Oh, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Amanda Foley. That's actually my preferred social media these days. I'm also on Instagram at curate.your.soul. And my website's curateyoursoul.com. I do offer free discovery sessions if anybody wants to chit chat. I love meeting new people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And my name's Spencer Carpenter, founder of Outlier Audio. You can find us online at outlieraudio.com. I also have an Outlier Audio Instagram. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and you can find the description for the KAOR system in the description of this podcast. And don't forget, if you like this, please leave us a 5-star review. Please share it with someone that knows that they want to be getting booked on podcasts in the next year and is starting to set the groundwork for that, because this podcast is meant to make this as easy as possible for people. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.